the blue umbrella I shouldn't have opened. I didn't realize the umbrella was a message until it opened by itself in my hallway. It was the kind of umbrella that belongs to men who wear silver watches and have drivers. Navy canopy, wooden handle polished like a promise, the initials VR burned into the grain. I hadn't seen it when I left that morning. When I came back, the door had latched the way it always does. Once, twice, whisper, and the umbrella leaned against the mirror as if it had been there forever, waiting to be noticed. A band of water darkened the rug beneath it like a shadow crawling out of season. I live on the 12th floor of a building that smells faintly of disinfectant and old secrets. I'm a security consultant by job title, a crisis manager by habit. I break things before other people do and then bill to put them back together. The person who had left the umbrella in my apartment had considered all that and decided to ignore it. I called Lena. "You got it," she said, breathless enough that I pictured stares or lies. "Got what?" "The umbrella," she said, the way you say the code in a movie. "Blue, wooden handle, initials for Victor Romanov because of course he stamps his artifacts. Tell me you didn't open it." "It opened itself." "Like everything he owns," she said. "Okay, put it by the door, open the window, and pretend you didn't. I'm on my way." "You have a key to my place?" I asked, not angry, just inventorying. "You gave it to me 3 months ago after the fire drill when you said, and I quote, 'We should stop pretending we're not in the same emergency.'" "Right," I said, stirring coffee that had gone cold again. "Hurry." Lena arrived with the rain, which made it hard to separate one from the other. She shook herself in the doorway like a beautiful dog and took the umbrella with the reverence of a litigator handling Exhibit A. Her coat was half-buttoned, hair pinned up by ambition more than bobby pins. She works for the Romanov Foundation, which raises funds for public art and private reputations, and she moves like someone who has learned to pass in 3 languages: donor, bored, truth. "Tell me no one saw you bring it in," she said. "I didn't bring it in," I said. "It was waiting for me like a test." "That's worse," she said, eyes scanning my apartment for other messages disguised as ordinary. "Victor uses umbrellas for meetings he doesn't want photographed. No phones under the canopy, no microphones pick up whispers in the rain. He's hosting a dinner at the atrium tonight. The umbrella is the invitation he doesn't send." "And he sent it to me," I said, "because sometimes you need to hear yourself doubt." "To us," she said, and there it was. The room quickened, became smaller and more electric, the way it always does when we decide we're on the same side. "We met 9 months ago when a museum paid me to audit their donor database, and the database paid me back with a tangle of names that belonged more to shell companies than people. Lena was the person across the table who didn't blink when I said offshore, who asked better questions when I said deferred gift. We've been walking a line ever since, a tightrope strung between ethics and appetite. On a Tuesday, we're colleagues. On a Wednesday, my mouth is at her throat. On Thursdays, we don't speak. On Friday, the city reminds us it's bigger than our virtues." "What does Victor want?" I asked. "What he always wants," she said, flipping the umbrella upside down to inspect the ribs. "A clean story, a shiny plaque, someone else to carry the weight." "And us." "We want the opposite," she said, "but we need to know how far he'll go." She closed the umbrella gently and propped it against the wall with the handle turned inward as if it were ashamed. Then she walked to me with that purposeful slowness that rewrites the distance between us. She put her hand at the back of my neck, thumb at the hinge of my jaw, like checking for truth. "Are we good?" she asked. "We're in motion," I said, because it fit better than yes. At the atrium, the rain performed for the skylight. Viktor Romanov greeted his guests where the glass staircase begins, a prince of a small country called now. He wore a dark suit with a lapel pin that meant money to people who knew and pretend valor to people who didn't. He kissed Lena's cheek without touching her and shook my hand like a dare. Nikolai, he said, using the version of my name he'd learned from the bios his staff reads. You keep interesting company. So do you, I said, scanning the room. I saw a councilwoman who loved ribbon cuttings like birthdays, a theater director whose funding always materialized on time and never smelled like the river, two men who work in infrastructure, which is what introductions say when they mean conversations behind doors. And standing at the bar, a woman with a blue umbrella identical to ours. Her hair was dark and pinned with a silver comb shaped like a fish. I could hear it sing from across the room. Who's that? I asked Lena. Marina, she said, not looking. Victor's Finch. You mean his fixer? I mean the person who knows how to measure silence, she said. Dinner was a choreography of good behavior. The room served sincerity in bowls and plans on platters. Victor stood to speak and made the rain part of his speech. He talked about the new wing for art canceled by history, about returning to nuance, about brave curation, which is how the rich talk when they want to clean something with applause. Lena's face learned calm. I took notes I'd burn. Halfway through, Marina drifted to our end of the table. Her eyes were the kind you see after a wave knocks you under. Too bright, briefly frightening, honest about the undertow. Your umbrella, she murmured, enough for us and no one else, has a recording device in the handle. He added it last month for insurance. Insurance against what? Lena asked. Against people like me, Marina said and smiled at the wrong angle. Walk with me. We did, because you do when a storm's envoy asks you to. In the corridor, the ceiling dipped lower, the way architecture does when it wants to overhear you. Marina leaned in. You're going to be asked to sign a confidentiality rider tonight, she said. It binds you to donor non-disparagement. It binds your clients to arbitration in perpetuity. It binds your mouths to your beds. No, Lena said. You'll say that, Marina said, not unkind. But Victor likes winning even when he can't afford to lose. Tell him no and he will simply move the goalposts in the press. And you, I asked, what do you like? Fresh air, she said, the kind that gets you fired. She glanced at the blue umbrella in my hand. I'd brought it because performance sometimes requires props. Now it felt like a pet I'd mistaken for a tool. Take off the handle, she said. It twists with a pin hidden in the notch. I did. Inside, a bead the size of a fingernail sat in a foam cradle like a pearl for a very rich mollusk. You could have stayed quiet, I said. I did, she said, for 2 years. She took a breath that looked like a shore. He's paying for the wing with a loan from a bank that swallows rivers. The rider would muzzle whistleblowers if water finds the basement. Victor thinks he's protecting art. He's protecting himself. Spare me the conversion story, Lena said. What do you want in exchange for this confession? For you to survive the blowback, Marina said, and then, with a quick smile that looked like regret, and for you to kiss him less in rooms with cameras. Excuse me, Lena said, color rising like a dangerous tide. Don't worry, Marina said. Victor thinks I don't notice what I notice. Her gaze flicked between us. He reads everything but bodies. Back at the table, Victor raised a glass to the future, and the rain agreed. Contracts arrived on silver trays as if they were dessert. The rider was worse than Marina had suggested. Its language made deceit sound like carefulness. I ran my finger along the margin and imagined my name under it like a bruise. We'll need counsel, I said. We'll need courage, Lena said. Victor's face did the polite shape it makes before it stops being polite. It's standard, he said, that word people use to make you feel unreasonable for seeing a cliff. Then you won't mind removing it, Lena said, and the room heard her even if they pretended not to. The pause that followed changed the weather. Victor turned his smile to me. Has she always been this brave? He asked, as if I'd brought her to show and tell. She's braver when she's alone, I said, which is either a compliment or a warning. He laughed, a short thing he could put on a shelf later. Let's talk, he said, gesturing to a side room which is where all the naked nouns live. The side room had a painting of a storm that had never actually happened. Victor closed the door and put his hand on the back of a chair the way men do when they'd prefer to put it on your throat. You think you can drag me at my own table, he said, voice softened by expensive decanters. We think you're smart enough not to make us, Lena said. You brought the umbrella, Victor said to me, disappointed. Marina made you paranoid. Marina made us accurate, I said, and placed the bead from the handle on the table. It looked like a pill I refused to swallow. He stared at it the way you stare at something that confirms what you suspected about yourself. Then he picked it up, weighed it, and smiled the kind of smile that makes prosecutors rehearse. Everyone records, he said. Only the sentimental ask permission. We're not sentimental, Lena said. We're tired. He set the bead down and changed tactics like a dance partner. You know I can make your firm disappear from certain lists, he told me. You know I can make your grant cycle dry up, he told Lena. And you know we can make a story about a donor who muzzled a museum because he feared rain, Lena said, voice level as a spirit measure. He considered us, then the bead, then the closed door, then whatever mirror he carries inside. Fine, he said, no rider, but if a basement floods, you'll wish for a contract. If the basement floods, I'll wish for a shovel, Lena said. We left with our mouths unbound and the bead in my pocket like a small captured sin. Outside, the rain had decided to become weather rather than plot. Marina waited under her identical umbrella as if she were an alternate ending. Thank you, Lena said to her, which was either magnanimous or inevitable. Don't thank me, Marina said. I already regret it. She looked at me as if to say, you have no idea what she's capable of when you're not around. I looked back as if to say, I've seen enough and I'm still here. Back at my apartment, we left the umbrella by the door like a talisman. The room felt emptier than it had that afternoon, which is what happens when you remove the wire from the bouquet. Lena took my face in both hands and searched it like a map. Are we going to make it? She asked. We're in motion, I said. Ask me when we land. She kissed me then, not as reward but as ritual. Her mouth was rain and the thing rain wants. We undressed with the slowness of people who don't want to be interrupted by their own fear. I traced the lines at her hips where stress collects like tide marks. She found the place below my ear where I keep a switch. We moved like we owed the room an apology and decided to pay in heat. It wasn't porn, it was proof. When she climbed onto me, the window fogged. When I said her name like an answer, something that had been holding its breath finally exhaled. After, we lay with the city pressing its face to the glass and the umbrella listening at the door. He thinks Marina is loyal, Lena said into my shoulder. He thinks he's gravity, I said. People who think that don't notice when you grow wings. I'm not a bird, she said, smile against my skin. No, I said, you're the storm. 2 days later, the headlines congratulated Victor on the brave new wing and misquoted half the press release. A reporter I trust sent me 3 photos of sump pumps behind the museum. Marina texted me a single period. Lena drafted a donor memo that read like a calm knife. We worked. We slept too little. We performed love without having to perform it. And then the thing happened that every story like ours requires. Someone tried to use us against us. It was a Tuesday. My phone buzzed as I was leaving a meeting with a client whose server had become a sieve. The message came from an unknown number with the easy confidence of a person who has sat in your chair when you weren't home. Thought you should see this, it said, followed by a link to a post on a gossip site that specializes in philanthropy and schadenfreude. The photo at the top was of me and Lena in the corridor at the atrium, faces too close, umbrella between us like a secret bouncer. The caption called her Romanov's woman and called me a consultant known for creative interpretations. The implication was lazier than the truth, but uglier too. That Lena had slept her way into influence, that I was the way she kept getting invited to decision tables. The comments performed morality with the joy of amateurs. I stared at it until the elevator doors closed, and then I kept staring. When I looked up, Marina was in the corner of the car, umbrella folded like a weapon against the wall. She raised one eyebrow, a small museum of expression. "Not me," she said. "I know," I said. "Victor." "Victor thinks in checks," she said. "This is script. My guess is the councilwoman's fixer. He's a man who hates that power wears heels." "I hate that heels have to," I said. She almost smiled. "Fix it," she said. "It's what you do." I fixed it the way I fix most things, by making a bigger truth more interesting than a smaller lie. Sparrow, no, not him, a different reporter, a woman who keeps receipts, published a piece about donor writers and the quiet war over non-disparagement. She quoted no one but named everyone. The gossip site's post dried up like a puddle in noon sun. Victor called to congratulate me on controlling a narrative he'd started. I told him to buy sandbags. That night, Lena knocked instead of keying in. "I didn't want to assume," she said. "Assume," I said, opening the door. "Assume forever." We ate takeout on the floor because the table felt like a stage. Then she took my hand and placed it over her heart like a pledge. "We don't get to be clean," she said, "but we can be clear." "Clear," I said, and meant it. The umbrella stayed by the door for a week before I left it on a bench near the river. It looked handsome and unnecessary. A man in a suit picked it up like destiny and walked into weather that believed him. A month later, the museum's basement took water it had not invited. The pumps did what pumps do. The press did what press does. Victor did what Victor had prepared for. He announced a fund for resilience and talked about climate with the fervor of a new convert. The wing opened with a painting that looked like a storm deciding to be a portrait. Lena stood at the back with me, hand in mine, mouth at my ear. "Do you forgive me for bringing the umbrella into your life?" she asked. "Do you forgive me for opening it?" I said. She laughed. "I never wanted clean," she said. "I wanted dry enough to sleep." "Sleep here," I said. We still fight. Sometimes she walks out because I say yes to a client who sets her teeth on edge. Sometimes I sleep on the couch because she tells a donor to keep his money and I count the paychecks we'll forgo. But there's a space in our apartment where the umbrella used to lean, and every time I look at it, I think, that's where we decided we didn't need to carry someone else's weather anymore. We kept moving. We didn't always land softly. We learned to keep a window open even when it wasn't raining. And when the city tries to throw a canopy over us, recordings, writers, rumors, we close our mouths around the truth and breathe it like air.